he looks at me and he's like, well, you're having identical twins. And I just stopped and I was like, what? What do you mean?
We spoke briefly at the 10-year reunion. Other than that, I don't think we've had a full discussion, potentially ever, really. Not like a real sit-down chat anyway, so it's good to catch up. So it's voting day. How was your voting experience this morning?
It was good. I got out there at 5:50 and polls open at 6:30, and I was one of the first people in line, voted, and then came home. So
that's exciting. So, like, you were there before the polls even opened then?
I was. I should have voted early, like done an early vote, but we for whatever reason, we didn't get around to it. So
yeah,
decided to go on election day.
What's amazing to me is, like, obviously they only do this every 4 years, right? So, well, I mean, unless you vote in the midterm elections, but for the presidential stuff, only every 4 years. So it's like, it's amazing to me how many different ways you're able to vote. I'm surprised there's not an app yet. You'd think that there would be eventually an app anyway.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It still seems like it's a big event to go vote. So
yeah, make it
easier so everybody votes, I guess.
All right. So looking back, I think people would be interested to hear this to sort of set things up. I remember you being a very intelligent, band sort of girl that was dressed really well. What impression do you have? No, you always had like because I don't know if it's still that deal, like where American Eagle and Aeropostale is like really cool when you're in high school. And I remember I was like, wow, she always has like the really new, really nice clothing. What was your impression of me when we were in high school?
Thank you, by the way, for that. But I did a lot of thrift store shopping, but I think of you just as being very outgoing. You were always bubbly. You were friends with everyone. I don't think a single person didn't like you.
Oh,
like I couldn't name a single person that didn't like you. Yeah, you were nice, kind and funny. So yeah, I think you're pretty neutral. You didn't really stir the pot with anyone too much. And didn't you do, maybe I'm wrong, but didn't you do like the news show back in like elementary school?
Middle school. Were you on that too?
Or middle school, I mean. Yeah.
I feel like our paths crossed fairly frequently. I mean, not that that's that surprising because we didn't go to a very big school, but were you in algebra with me when we were in 8th grade?
Yes.
I remember I felt so accomplished that we got into that super advanced high school math class.
Right. It's very impressive. I was never in the advanced classes, so I appreciate you thinking that I was intelligent. But yeah, algebra was like that was my moment.
You had that, you came off with that very intelligent, like you had, I want to say like an aura. You had like that intelligent aura when you walked into a room, like, oh man, she's going to get the A.
I was faking it, Brandon.
Well, you faked it. Maybe you should get into acting.
There you go.
Yeah, I remember that 8th grade class. So I sat next to Philip Dutry, and then I had Julie was sitting behind me. And I remember being really excited about that class for the first 2 weeks that we had it. And then after that, I was not a fan of algebra after that. So I ended up having to retake it in high school. But I did take it when we were in 8th grade.
You still took it in 8th grade, so that's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically something you can throw on your resume that you didn't do too great on, but you know it. Yeah, if I ever get into a super mathematical field, I'm going to throw that on there. Number one, I took algebra in the 8th grade. All right, but did you take any of the classes? Because you could take college courses while you were still in high school, right? Did you do any of those?
Yeah. Actually, I did those in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. But so I should have, been done with college by the time I was a year out of high school, but changing my major, I kind of had to start from square one. So that didn't quite happen. But did you take the PSEO classes?
No, I didn't. By the time so my GPA wasn't the grandest of all grades by the time I got to like my sophomore and junior year. But I, definitely was not in any sort of honor society or college courses or anything. I was very middle of the road, C, B kind of area. Okay. Yeah. Hey, I mean, it happens. What's that?
I said, look at you now. It doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, that's right. Mr. Graham, you with your math quizzes. Look at me now. No, I actually, okay. So I do want to throw this out there because anybody who went to our high school that will eventually see this, I loved Mr. Graham. Like, I know that he was very, I don't even want to say strict. He was just very straight to the point. And I actually really liked that about Mr. Graham. He was one of my favorite teachers in high school.
Yeah, what was it, trig that he taught?
Okay, I had him for...
It wasn't geometry.
I had him for statistics.
Okay.
And it might have been trig. It wasn't algebra, because I don't think he taught algebra, but I think he taught like the upper level math classes.
Yeah. No, I agree. He was stern. I liked the guy, but I was not good at math. So.
Okay, so I feel like we have both had enough of the traumatic math memories for now. When we left that area, the area we went to high school in, did you keep in touch with many people from high school, or no?
No, I stay in touch with like 4 or 5 people from high school, some close friends, which is kind of surprising. I feel like, you go to high school and you think that these people, like, this is your life. You see these people every day. You're the first people you see when you get up,
Yeah.
But no, it's kind of surprising. And it doesn't seem like it was that long ago that we were in high school. I mean, I guess it really was, but
it was. Yeah. Is it amazing how fast 12 years go by? It does not feel like it's been 12 years.
No, we had neighbors move in across the street who are, I think they're like 24, but I had made a comment that they were our age, and my husband just looked at me and he's like, dude, you're 30. You're not 24. Like, that was a long time ago.
It doesn't feel like it though. Like, I would have never guessed that this is what 30 feels like. Are you 30 by now? Are you 30 now?
I'm 30. Yeah. I turned 30 in April. Are you?
Okay. Yeah, I'm 30. I'll be 31 in actually a couple of weeks. I'll be 31 at the end of this month. So I was kind of like on the older end for our grade. Actually, I always remember the 2 people that I hung out with a lot, especially in 7th and 8th grade, were Mark and Nathan. And Mark, I think, was potentially the oldest person in our grade until Errol came to our class in junior and senior year. And then Nathan, I want to say, was potentially the youngest. If he wasn't, maybe Lindsay might have been the youngest in our
Lindsay
year.
was young.
Yeah.
But I guess, and then once you graduate though, like, it seems like a bigger deal, like when you're in high school. And then now, like, some of my friends are 5 years older and some are 5 years young. Like, it kind of doesn't make a big of a deal when you're out of all of that. And you never have that thought while you're in the middle of it, that it feels like it's the biggest deal in the world, everything that happens. But especially, so when I was doing sports reporting, I did a lot of coverage of high school sports. So like high school basketball, high school football. And I would have all these flashbacks to thinking like, what happens here is going to impact the whole rest of my life. That's what you keep getting told, is what you do in high school is so important for the rest of your life. It really isn't. I mean, there's a lot of people who completely reinvent themselves the day after they leave and never look back. So true. I mean, I think about who I am now versus who I was in high school. And I have a lot of, I don't know, like, I just wish that I could go back and do things a little bit different when I was in high school, because I did think that was like the biggest deal. And I probably would have been a nicer person and a little bit more, I don't know. That shocks me to hear, because you were always seemed like one of the nicest people that was in the entire school, or at least you could have been acting again. And when I came around, you were like, all right, let me turn to hi. I don't know, but no, that wasn't acting, I don't think, but I don't know. I think that it's weird to think of how people, and maybe, I don't know if you do this, but sometimes I do think like, how do people actually remember me from high school? Like, what is the first thing that they think of when they think of me? And was I a mean person? Because I know I did some mean things and I wasn't always the kindest person, but hopefully that's kind of the vibe of what you're saying, that people remember versus the not so nice. I think you're pretty safe there. I think that there will be very few people that would remember you as a unkind person. That being said, I would like to ask you, do you have any memories of band camp? Because I feel like if there was a moment where you could have pulled a prank that might have been mean or anything, it might have happened at band camp, because I never got to do it. I was in band through 8th grade, and then we had to choose between doing football and band when I was a freshman. And I actually did band in junior year too, but not marching band. So tell me about band camp, because I want to hear what it was actually like. I wish I had some great stories, and I'm sure there are some that I'm forgetting. But it was just a lot of work. Like, I appreciated going, and I did actually look forward to it, but it was like, you were up until we showered at 4:30 in the morning. That was like our time slot.
Really?
And so it was like, we'd go to bed at and then you had to do like this rec time at night. So you couldn't go to bed until it was like midnight or something. And then you wake up at 3:30 so you can get into the shower, and then you come back in and go back in your bunk.
That sounds terrible. I'm going to be honest.
I mean, overall it was good. I think it taught a lot of discipline, but, it was not the most fun thing in summer, but it was a valuable experience.
That brings me back to my memories of Mr. Cecil. And didn't you, there are certain memories that I have from high school, middle school that are just really random things. I have no clue why I remember. Did you let Mr. Cecil borrow a copy of that Jack Black movie where he was a band teacher?
How do you remember that?
I have no idea. Like I said, there's super small things that I remember, and I have no idea why.
You have an incredible memory. So here's the story with this. If Mr. Cecil ever watches this, he will laugh about this. But this was the first DVD that I bought with my own money. And so it was...
which was an excellent choice, by the way.
I loved that movie. It was right when it came out. It was School of Rock. That was the name of the movie. And I loved this movie, and I bought it. And then the next day I took it in and asked Mr. Cecil if he had seen it and if he wanted to borrow it. And he did, but then he didn't give it back for 8 months. And so I was like, that's what I remember. Maybe it was a couple months, but I was like, dude, I just worked so hard for this money. And now and so I didn't want to ask him and be rude, but then eventually he brought it in. He's like, yeah, I watched it. I'm like, did you like it? He's like, yeah, it was good. I'm like, cool. Well,
you were expecting a groundbreaking reaction. I watched it every night for 8 months, and it was life-changing.
I couldn't give it back to you, Britt, because it was so good. But
do you have any memories that stick out? Obviously, those are the kind of memories that unless they flash back to you, you're not going to think of it. But that was one thing that I definitely remember for whatever reason in jazz band, maybe.
Yeah, I wasn't in jazz, right?
So regular band then.
I don't know. I remember just the 6th grade pod, and I remember being climbing into the lockers. The lockers were I used to be so tiny, and I used to climb into these lockers. And I remember people closing them on me. I remember threats, people doing threats at our school in 6th grade, and I don't know. I remember that and 9/11. That was in.
Oh yeah, when we were in 6th grade.
Yeah. So
I forget. I was in our history teacher's class when that happened, and they brought in this and it was just a very confusing day.
Yeah, for sure.
And we didn't get to do the Lolly the Trolley trip.
Yeah, but that was was that because of that?
I'm listing something else that happened when we were in middle school. That's
the food fight.
The food fight. I wasn't even there. I wasn't either. Oh man. Oh, memories. All right. So let's talk a little bit about life post high school.
Yeah.
When and where did you find out you were having twins? Because you have twins, and were you surprised? Do they run in your family? Talk to me about it.
Okay. Surprise is an understatement. I was shocked. I had no clue. So,
were they your first?
Yeah. So a little backstory. My husband and I wanted kids. We tried for about 6 months, and I found out I was pregnant. And then I was having a ton of pain. So I called the doctor and said, is this normal? Is there something going wrong? Am I miscarrying this baby? And they said, well, we won't know until we do an ultrasound. But if you're only 6 weeks, we're not going to do an ultrasound. We'll do blood work. And if your blood work shows that your hormone levels are high enough, then we'll bring you in for an ultrasound. Okay, cool, whatever. So I go and I get the blood work, and they call me and they're like, okay, your hormone levels are extremely high. And so that means one of two things. Either there's something different about this pregnancy, or you're further along than you think you are. So we'll come on in, we'll do an ultrasound. So they did the ultrasound, and it was me and my husband in the room, and they had this specialist, and they were just talking in medical terms. Right. And I'm just thinking gosh, I hope everything's okay. I really want this baby. And he looks at me and he's like, well, you're having identical twins. And I just stopped, and I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, there are 2 heartbeats and they just started beating a couple days ago. And I wanted to cry. I was terrified. I was like, but I don't have twins in my family. And he's like, well, identical twins are just pure chance. That has nothing to do with family genetics. He said, so this is just an act of God. And so
is it strange how happy I am for you right now? Like, I know this happened years and years ago, but I feel like
it's such a strong memory. But yeah, my husband just laughed and he's like, this would happen to us. Like, okay, we're doing it. And I don't even remember anything after that point. I just kept telling the doctor, like, shut up. Like, I told the doctor that, and he's like, ma'am, we can't joke about this. Like, you are being. And then, so that was extremely terrifying. And I was like shaking. I don't remember walking back to the car. I called a bunch of people and and so he said, okay, so this is how little I knew about identical twins. I didn't even know that they would both be boys or both be girls. And so,
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. So identical twins are always either both boys or both girls, and they look identical. And then fraternal twins are what run in genetics and a female's genetics. So twins aren't based on the male's genetics. It's based on the female's. Huh. And so, which is really interesting. I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
But
this interview just took a really educational turn here. I had no idea.
Well, I didn't know that either. I know way too much about twins now that I have them. But it's all because of the female, not to get too graphic, but it's because the female is releasing 1 egg that's fertilized. Whereas a family, if it's in your genetics, a female could release 2 eggs that are fertilized. And so that's how you get twins.
Wow.
So men just release a bunch. And so
okay.
That's how that works.
So twins actually do run in my family. I have, my grandparents were twins. And then his parents were twins. And then I believe I have an uncle that was a twin. And
really?
It's supposed to skip a generation. So I believe my generation was actually supposed to be a twin. So I don't know if that means that I'm overdue.
I guess. Yeah. So if my theory is wrong, then it will be your family that will be having, because you don't have sisters, right?
No sisters.
Okay.
And my brother just had a baby, and it was a 1 baby. She was a 1 baby. Yeah.
I say just 1, but 1 is a lot. So 1 baby.
Okay. So you weren't the first in our grade to have kids, but you were among the first. Who did you reach out to and talk to throughout that process? Or was it just a lot of books and Google?
Oh my goodness. That's a great question. It was actually my sister-in-law. So David's one of 5 kids and they're all older. And so they all have kids. So it was a lot of questions of is this normal? What do I do? How do I pick this? I don't know. So a lot of Google, a lot of, just using this mom instinct that you get, I guess, when you have kids. But and then people started having kids and getting married kind of after us. So I guess maybe we're the trendsetters in that.
What surprised you the most about having twins, or what about just having a baby in general? Is there anything that you were like, I wasn't expecting that?
I think no matter how much you prepare to have kids, nothing prepares you for how much you love them. The moment that you see them, this is so cliche, but the moment you see them, you're like, oh my gosh, it's a real baby. That's my baby. I don't know. It's bizarre. It's your heart has come out of your body and it's just walking around. Also, it's surprising how hard it is to have kids. They're just a lot of work. So I'm very blessed with 2 healthy, 4-year-old girls, but they are.
Can we stop real quick? Just right there. You just said you have 4-year-old girls. The fact that you have 4-year-olds, it's just
I know. What is this, Brandon? How am I old enough for this?
We are getting old, and I don't know where it happened. I feel 22. I don't know. What age do you feel right now?
I would say probably 22, 23. I felt like that's kind of, but we're not we're way past that. We're old. When I was in high school, and
I wouldn't say we're way past it.
Well,
no, we're getting there.
When you were in high school, somebody who was 30, they were
old.
Eh.
Yeah.
That's all.
Even mid-20s, I remember thinking, wow, that's old. And now that I'm 30, I'm okay. So last year when I was in Los Angeles, I lived in a house that a lot of the other roommates were between 19 to like 23. And I felt like I was a little bit more mature. Like I didn't because thinking back, I mean, when you're a freshman in college, when you're a sophomore in college, you do some stupid things. And I just remember looking at them and thinking like, yeah, I know you're going to regret this in about 5 years. But
yes, I know exactly that. I'm glad we're past that point too.
Yeah. But I think we're still fun. I think we're still in that fun age.
I agree. And that's why I'm like, okay, having kids early. I'm like, I can be like, I'm fun, right? Eventually my kids will get to a point when they're like, yeah, you're not cool. Like,
you're not a regular mom. You're a cool mom.
I'm right. Exactly. I'll remind them of that.
It's interesting, like, to see there's reunion shows that are happening now. And it's shows that we were like the Mean Girls reunion. And they all seem like they're in their 40s now and 50s. And not that that's old either, but it's strange to see our idols, teen idols, getting older.
Yes. And even just like my favorite actors and actresses as kids, like you see them like on commercials and stuff now, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I used to be, well, I still do love Adam Sandler, but he's so like, there's.
Hold on one second. It looks like we are. Let me try and get you back here. Our audio seems to have disconnected for a second. Check. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. It looked like our connection got unstable there for a second.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Probably it could have been on my end too. All right. So, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
All right. So let's start out just from like you were talking about Adam Sandler.
Oh, yeah. I just was saying that, like, you know, some of my favorite actors when I was younger or in high school, like they just really seem old now. And it just doesn't seem like that could be possible.
I worked with Jim Carrey last year. And when I first saw him on set, I kind of was frozen because there's certain people that just really meant something in your childhood that when you see them in person, it's like, oh, and he was much taller than what I was expecting him to be. He's probably like 6'2", I bet.
Really?
Yeah. So, because I'm kind of a tall guy. I'm taller than most people when I meet a lot of people that I've seen in person. And when I saw him, I had to look up and I was just like, oh my God, it's Liar Liar. It's the Mask. It's the Grinch. Like, and I don't know. I'm just so glad that the majority of the people that we looked up to when we were kids haven't like gone off the deep end or, you know. So, I mean, we lost Chris Farley when we were all so young. So,
yes. And a couple more since then, but it is tragic.
All right. So you're married, you have kids, your sister's married. How do you balance time during the holidays? Because in-laws, extended family, what does that look like for you? Do you have any in-laws that are out of state? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, great question. I feel like the whole holiday thing was one of the biggest challenges in our first year of marriage because it was like, what is this going to look like? Whose house do we go to? You know, I'm so used to on Christmas morning, you wake up and I go to my parents' house kind of thing. But all of our family is local, which is huge. Our immediate family. So like I said, David is one of 5 and they all live within 20, 30 minutes of us, including his parents. Both of our parents are still married too. So that kind of gives us 2 separate Christmases. Right. But it is a balance of like, okay, where are we going to go for this? Where are we going to go for this? So, unfortunately my family I guess not unfortunately, but my family's more flexible. So we kind of figure out what we're doing with his family first. And then we kind of just make it work with mine. My sister doesn't have kids yet. Hopefully someday she will, but,
you say hopefully, like, unless they're like hiding somewhere, like she haven't told us yet.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if they want any kids. But you know, if they choose to do that and they're blessed with kids, then I think, that will add a little bit of complexity with his family. So I don't know, but, so and also another layer of complexity there is that David is a pastor, so he's employed by the church. So part of what's difficult with that is he's there on Christmas, like all day long, right? So there's Christmas Eve services, there's Christmas Day. And so it's like waiting until 1:00 on Christmas Day to do, like, it's kind of crazy, but we just make it work.
Brittany, it has been so amazing catching up with you. You know what's interesting is I said it a little earlier. I feel like I don't know that we actually had a full sit down conversation at any point, like while we were in high school. Because I mean, it just doesn't happen. You don't really cross paths. That's been one of my favorite things about doing a podcast is that, and doing these YouTube videos, is that you can actually sit and just chat with someone and hear about their lives. So it's exciting to see you become a young 30-year-old woman with children and married and living your life. What do you have this rest of the year that you're really looking forward to?
Well, I guess I'm ready to decorate for Christmas like today. I'm ready for COVID and politics and all that to be behind us. Looking forward to just good health and really learning to like take advantage of time with family and people who we haven't gotten to see over quarantine. So
for those of the people that are watching this that are perhaps new in their 20s, what advice do you have or any tips that you might have for people to just make the most of their life and just be a happy person?
Yeah, I think finding things that you love and pursuing those things and not really taking, life too seriously, because when you're in high school, like we said earlier, it's all you know, but there's so much more after that. You can do anything, you can be anything. So I think that's the most important.
Brittany, it was awesome chatting with you, and I really look forward to our paths crossing perhaps at the 20-year reunion, I guess is the next thing. We're 8 years away from that. So,
oh my goodness.
I hope you have an awesome day.
Thank you, Brandon. Take care.